We need to get rid of the mindset that 6v6 means double shields. And I see this over and over again because whenever anybody mentions that 6v6 was the better game mode, which it was, don't like go anywhere, the large consensus is that 6v6 is a better game mode. But the big issue is, of course, the heroes in that game mode and how the game mode was played. Those of us veterans, who the vast majority of people who play Overwatch right now are not, we understand what the game was like before Sigma, before Orisa, before double shields, and before even goats was a thing. What the problem, really the big problem with Overwatch was when the meta got stale and everybody had to play the same thing over and over and over again. That's when the game became unfun. It's not that everything was unfun, it's that specific thing was completely unfun. I'm going to share a little bit of personal experience, and I know a lot of other people have had this too. I imagine your first time playing double shields was very similar to mine. It was, wow, this is kind of cool. You get to survive forever, you get to stand around, set yourself up for something. When the enemy picked double shields, you were like, ooh, also this is kind of interesting. There's a lot of damage being fired around. There's a lot of survival potential behind this, which always feels good when you're the one surviving. But when we're doing that every single fight, every single game, over and 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 over again, and especially too, we're looking at our favorite streamers who their job really is to play the game all day, every single day, and they're getting bored of it. They're finding all the shortcuts. They're finding all the things that make that composition easy. You're matching all the things that they're doing. Everybody's just doing the same damn thing over and over again, playing Overwatch in the same damn way and hating it. Because what happens is you end up feeling forced to do that playstyle. This comes from my past. This kind of perspective comes from my past of not understanding the Overwatch community at all before, well, until maybe I hit like mid to high platinum. I did not follow anything on YouTube. I just sat down with my friends and played the game. And a lot of my friends weren't that good at the game, but I was a tryhard and I ended up getting to a fairly decent elo. And I had no idea what the pros were doing. I had no idea what the meta was. I had absolutely no perspective what was going on in the conversation that was shaping the dynamics of Overwatch that I just didn't understand the meta. So I wasn't stuck playing the same damn game over and over again. If a new patch came in, if a new update changed the way the fundamentals of a certain hero played, then I kind of just changed my playstyle. I didn't really think about its impact in terms of the game. It wasn't until I started trying to get a little bit better that I realized, oh, meta really does matter here. And that's when I had to go look up other heroes. I had to go research different playstyles. I had to go find different professional players and streamers who were playing in very specific ways. And what was happening, because I was relatively new to getting into that, and it was scattered here. I don't know the exact meta, because I'll point out, it wasn't until maybe 3 or 4 years ago that I really started following all of the Overwatch releases. But I was a reasonable player at the time and probably had just as many hours, if not more hours, than both the developers and, I wouldn't say pros, but almost as many hours as streamers at the time, because I was working and I was just playing the game and had a community that we played the game all the time and all that kind of, that's the perspective. And that's what I feel like most other players sit and look at Overwatch as. And when you give them the meta, you give them the thing that feels very productive in that specific moment, in that, like I say, specific moment, because it is only that moment that you're doing something productive, then it may feel all the time that you need to do that thing over and over and over again. But without that understanding, you think, okay, well, obviously I was a platinum player at the time trying to get better. But in terms of enjoyment, in terms of personal skill, I was absolutely loving it. The more I started to copy the playstyle of the higher elos, the worse Overwatch got. The more I started to listen to other players and play the same damn thing over and over again, the worse Overwatch got. And I've always been able to just kind of brush it off because I don't really think about it too much. Or I don't really play in that environment too much either. We've done, I mentioned this almost every video, Sunday Scraps, for absolute ever. And I even did it before I was a hardcore follower of a lot of these streamers and content creators and coaches and so on and so forth. I was having a blast. And part of Overwatch, I mentioned this in the previous video, is what you don't know. So if I don't know what the solution is and I can't go to this exact person and the enemy team doesn't know the solution, because of course all my friends, or even, well, when we're grouped and playing team fights, obviously it's it, but a lot of people I know didn't really follow those content creators either. When we were trying to find the solution, that was Overwatch at its best. There's a level of fake Overwatch that comes in when we're talking about Overwatch 2, and we're talking about 5v5. I've mentioned it before because we're trying to recreate the feel of Overwatch 1 6v6 while having 5v5 players. But the only reason why that happened is because Blizzard conceded to the higher elos. Now the higher elos may say, they may go, hey, wait a minute, 5v5 is not better for a higher elo game. It's not a more complicated game, and I will totally agree with you there. I will absolutely agree with you. But they caved in the opposite direction. They said, we're not going to deal with this anymore. They look, pros and streamers and high elo players like to say that Blizzard doesn't balance for them, but Blizzard absolutely does balance for them. They go, you guys are a pain in the ass. You paid $40, $60, almost whatever you paid your $100 for your special edition years and years and years ago. You're putting thousands of hours into our servers, and you're complaining, and you're making money. You are, some poor developer is slaving away at the back end of the engine every single day, and some poor cleaning lady is cleaning the room that guy is working in. So you can play games all day and then complain about it, which I do agree is a bad, it's a bit of a cop-out, but I'm going to argue against the cop-out in a second, so hold me out here. Like I understand their perspective. They're looking at it going like, why are we doing this? But the player's perspective is, you guys have created this environment. This is the environment you promised to create. They didn't really know they were going to do that. So instead of directly, and then we've seen this a lot with weird changes for other heroes. When the higher elo community, when the larger community of Overwatch that is actually invested in kind of this weird content creation bubble really wants something, sometimes Blizzard will just go, screw you guys, we're going to do the opposite thing. We think shooting stuff at people and protecting people with abilities is a fun thing. 6v6 is too complicated. You guys are complaining about double shields all the time. You complain about this, complain about that. You guys create goats. We create 2-2-2. We 2-2-2. You guys do goats double shield style, and just people are just never happy. But that's Overwatch. That is Overwatch. Is when you don't know what's happening. Of course, Samito said it really, he was pretty clear about it. It is Blizzard's fault for, of course, leaving the game to die. We didn't have any content at all. And so what happens is everybody just defaults to a single play style. I think if we gave Overwatch another 5-10 years without any updates, I think we would see the same thing that we see in the speedrunning community, where different exploits would allow us to work around certain stages in Overwatch's life. I, of course, think the best stage was a little bit before GOATS, or even when GOATS was enabled, but not, but people didn't really know about it yet. That was probably the most fun. But we can't have both ways, where we're balancing and changing the game all the time while maintaining a balanced game, while being able to make a high-skilled game. That's not directly the conclusion of what I want to start with, because I really want to focus. I really want to focus on the double shields, because we'll bring it back. I'm just trying to, there's a lot here, so and I'm pretty stupid, so we're gonna work around it. Solutions. This is the problem. So if we're gonna change things dynamically, this is my point. If we're gonna change the game over and over and over again, if we're gonna make it a live service as opposed to a set and forget game, which is kind of what Blizzard was set up for. And when you're a business, if you set up for something like that, you're setting up for a few years of it. So I'm not gonna talk about that directly. But when we are dealing with a 6v6 environment, what we figured out, which was much different from the very start of Overwatch, is that tanks are way more powerful than we ever imagined. I've mentioned in a previous video about balancing flat, balancing straight across the entire roster, where every single hero is equal to another. I agree, when Overwatch first came out, a lot of the tanks, in terms of skill, in terms of how good people were at the game, were completely balanced to the average player. By the end of Overwatch's life, we were realizing that tanks are way overtuned. Way overtuned for the 6v6 environment. And if you've checked out, I need to make some video links here and set it up in some way so you guys have easy access. But if you take a look at a game like Counter-Strike, like, the tank is the guy who just has body armor and someone doesn't. And that's the level, that's the amount of power a tank has in Overwatch. They have all these shields, they have all these survivability abilities, they have mobility, they have so much that when we didn't know how to use them properly, yeah, they were totally balanced because they were weak in comparison in terms of damage and mobility. But now that they have, and now that we've mastered those abilities, and we've also given them more of those abilities, we've completely overtuned it past what we learned from the original Overwatch's release. Solutions directly, and I'm just going to bust some ideas out there, because I've mentioned before in the past an ability that blows holes through shields. People may argue, oh, but what if this happens? There are a lot of ways that you can blow holes through shields. I'm not going to go into the specifics, but again, if you think about it, Ryan has his shield up, he gets a hole blown in it, he puts his shield down, brings it back up. The shield is now fresh and new. An Orisa, who was the problem in double shields, she puts her shield down, someone blows a hole in the shield in a way, just cracks it or makes some little gap in it. Orisa has to wait with a cracked shield on the ground until another shield comes up. So she's committing to that counter ability. There have been arguments that I've seen where they're like, we don't want an ability that's specifically meant to counter whatever thing. Well, you can add something that's general that has side effects. So it could be, imagine, for example, I'll just throw this out here, if Sojourn's disruptor field disrupted a hole where shields didn't work. Hear me out, right? So naturally it would do what it would normally do, and it would be okay if you were running one shield on your team, but as soon as you run two shields on your team, that ability is now going to cut its way through two different shields and get twice as much value. Same thing with an ability that swaps shields from friendly to ally, or from friendly to ally, from friendly or enemy to friendly. So if the Reinhardt's holding a shield up and it gets hit by this ability, it flips teams. Now he's holding up an enemy shield, puts his shield down, brings it up. It's a fresh new shield. An Orisa places her shield down. You swap teams. Now the enemy team has another shield, and possibly they're running triple shields, and you're running no shields or one shield or something like that. And then you reverse it, right? Where it's like, if they have more shield, if they are running as something that gives them 3 shields, and you have an ability now to blow a hole in it, and they have an ability to counter it, you have this whole counterplay built into the heroes. And you could build these skills into existing heroes. You could build them into existing kits to counter, especially in Overwatch 2, we've changed up and added so many more functions to heroes that like, they have way more survivability and way more utility anyways. So why not give them more utility against the things that are overpowered, bring that power up to the tanks as opposed to bringing the DPS down and then the healers and the tanks up in power. Another ability too that would work really well is more mobility. Symmetra, we all thought was close. Something like a teleporter. I do like the idea, you could imagine Lifeweaver 2 as a version of a teleport where you can pull people up. That kind of play style, I think, would do a lot to alleviate a shield holding an angle and you're able to shoot over it or engage in some way. There's also 2 abilities, like the more health that's on the field, you can imagine having a support that can put out more healing. So if you have a tank that throws out more shields, so if you have tons of shields on the field, those shields you could say count towards that, some kind of health pool, we'll say shield pool, some energy sucking thing, right? Then that support would have significantly more power against a shield composition as opposed to someone that didn't. Again, there's lots of arguments going, well, I don't want specific abilities countering specific heroes. Well, we already have that in a way, just passively and also too in some direct form. Which I will bring on to my last point. I do want us to be very, very careful about not getting into the trap of having a hero that throws a projectile and then shoots people down. Because we could reduce all of Overwatch to that. And it seems like that's where we're going. We're removing abilities that are very creative and reactive and interactive with the environment. For example, Sombra, which I'm not so happy about. Sombra 2 was also one of those characters that was buffed in a way to counter high utility shields, especially with EMP. There's some, again, we didn't create enough to fix it. But rather than actually fixing the character, we've now reduced ourselves into throw a projectile and shoot them down, which has me worried, and I'm actually actively thinking about it. Isn't that Counter-Strike and Valorant playstyle anyways? Isn't that the whole thing? I have thousands of hours in Counter-Strike, and now that I'm thinking about it, throw a smoke grenade, push in. Throw a regular grenade, push in. Throw a molly, wait and shoot at them. The game is being reduced down into this very base level thing. And the problem, I'm going to be very critical too about the Overwatch community. The Overwatch community has a survivor bias, and it's also got some natural selection to it, where the natural selection has created a group of people that the game has managed not to totally piss off, but these group of people are so relatively needy, and I'm needy too. It's the thing, we're all very needy, that we've ended up shifting things into only our playstyle and our opinions. We've all done it. We all have some form of responsibility for this. With my 20, 30, and then sometimes a few thousand viewers on these videos. We've all done it, which is so frustrating, where we could have all of the Call of Duty guys still in Overwatch. We could have them. We have the playstyle for it. And we have the environments for it too. But because we're so obsessed and so stuck in the composition that exists only now and here, everybody, like, whenever I bring up any opportunity, and this is so frustrating, and I'll conclude it to bring it back to full circle, whenever I watch these or listen to these podcasts and debates on whether or not Overwatch was better as a 6v6 or it was a 5v5, the discussion for the 5v5 only ever comes down to I hated double shields. That's it. Double shields is not 6v6. People have to stop bringing that up, even when they say they're not going to bring it up in multiple podcasts and multiple little conversations I've heard. They're like, we're not going to talk about it. They always bring it up. It is because we have not designed the game properly. It's as simple as that. So thank you very much, guys, for watching. Of course, tell me your opinions below. I do know a lot of people do like 5v5, but I think there's a place for you still in Overwatch. If you like 5v5 more than you like 6v6, I think there's enough people that would love Overwatch that we would not split user bases by having two different styles of Overwatch. We could have the entire Call of Duty franchise inside the Overwatch engine playing around people. We would see the best FPS players in the world playing Overwatch, and we would see the best tank players, MMO, the guys who have fights that last for an hour long without dying. Those guys and the FPS people together. I don't know what else to say. Thanks, guys, for watching. Of course, we can talk about this. You'll hear me repeat a few of those. I did say this, but like and subscribe if you listen to the whole thing. Please. Please. Overwatch is a dying game. And it's very hard to get views. Unless maybe I just call them stupid, but it is very... you guys know what's going on. Anyways, also join us, too, every single Sunday. Play Sunday Scrub Club Scraps with the community. Check it out. Everything's in the description. See you guys later.